Mike McCool here. I'm in the Royal Examiner studio, and with me this morning is Michael Williams. Michael Williams is known about town. He's a member of Rotary. He's got his Rotary shirt on, very active. He's been a teacher at RMA and all sorts of counselors and all sorts of things. So if you're from Front Royal, you've seen Michael around in the community working hard. But today he's going to talk to us about a weight loss program he went on. I heard him say 30 pounds in 30 days, and he said, 20 pounds in 10 days. So it sounds like a great program. It's not something you recommend, is it, Michael?
I do not recommend the COVID weight loss treatment program.
Michael is a COVID virus survivor. He has had the virus, him and his wife. Correct. He's going to tell us all about it. Go ahead.
Sure. Several weeks ago, I was driving a group for a beer tour, which my business, MW Chauffeur Services, does. And we were all doing everything we thought we were supposed to do with the masks, and whenever we got out of the car, you can only distance so far inside a vehicle.
Sure.
But we felt like we were doing everything we were supposed to do.
You were spraying the sanitizer everywhere.
Yeah, we had the hand sanitizer. Anytime one of us talked or coughed or whatever, we were pretty good about covering ourselves. Sure. Something I guess I probably ought to, in retrospect, look at is, do I require a mask inside my vehicle?
Right.
Because I haven't done that before, and I certainly don't want to. I don't want to make it awkward for my clients.
Sure.
But at the same time, I really don't want to get this again. Having somebody sit in the front seat, I never really thought about that, during all this. And now I'm starting to think, hey, should I just say, hey, look, I can't have anybody in the front seat right now.
Right.
But anyway, getting back to the story, we went to 4 different venues, and we had some concerns with the final venue we went to, but we went ahead and went in anyway. Unfortunately, and again, I can't. I want to be cautious not to blame somebody because it may have been one of us.
Sure.
Beforehand, you don't know were they symptomatic and
everything else. That's one thing about the virus. You don't know if you have it or not.
No, you have no idea. I mean, you could be just fine and not realize you're giving it to everybody.
Exactly.
And so, that makes you a little more sensitive to the guidance that's been given. But the final venue we went to, there were no attempts to do what guidance to carry out what guidance had been given, and it was really frustrating. And on the Monday when I realized I had a fever, and all my friends that were part of that group were calling me saying, "Hey, we've got a fever," and then my wife had a fever, we were like, "Oh, spit."
Right.
So my wife, being a medical professional, immediately had to get tested, and because of who she is and what she does, they rapid it. Whatever, I don't know if that's the right word, but anyway, they fast tracked it. They said, "Hey, get this done."
Right.
And it came back positive, and then my friends came back. We all came back positive except one person who was sitting in the very, very back of the vehicle.
Isn't that strange? Yeah.
Which really makes you. It was interesting. But all that being, and they were sitting beside somebody who got it.
Sure.
But what was really, I guess, frustrating was I immediately called all 4 venues and said, "Hey, look, I want to, as a business person and whatever, I want to let you know what's going on." And within 10 minutes, the owners of the first 3 called me back with 101 questions. And they were very concerned about me. One of them, Carrie Barnhart at Front Row Brewery, called me or texted me every day, just asking me how I was.
Yeah.
They did it right. They were doing it right by their staff, by us, and everybody else. And but I never got a call back from the last one.
Right.
And again, people can think what they want, but and I'm not going to say the name, but I had a bunch of my friends in the business ask me because they take people places.
Right.
And I just said, "Hey, look, all I can tell you is this place never called me back," and I called them back a couple of times.
Right.
And they still haven't called me back.
Well, you mentioned that you kind of had a feeling going into a place. It's kind of our common sense kicks in. Maybe we need to use a little bit of that and do the things like, wash our hands and not rub our eyes and touch our face and wear your mask.
And I've got mine in here. It's my Rotary mask, and I probably shouldn't be having it around my pocket, but I mean, I've got to the point now where when I'm talking to people in my car, as soon as I say something, I immediately go to grab my mask first and talk, because I can't have it on when I'm driving because it fogs up my glasses.
Right.
But I think I I'd rather just, when I'm talking to somebody, I'll do that. Or if I think I'm going to cough, even though it might be allergies or whatever, or nerves, I cover it. And things I just never thought of before.
Right.
And be honest, maybe things we should have been thinking about all along.
That's right. That's right. So how was your treatment?
Well, as far as the treatment, the health department called and did the contact tracing part.
Right.
And Sherry pretty much did all the talking, which
Right.
probably saved the poor health department people a few hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we went through the whole scenario with them, and we called everybody that we had had any contact with at all. And fortunately, none of them, including our son, did not. Our son tested negative. Now he graduated from RMA a couple of months ago, and we pretty much haven't seen him since anyway. So I never thought I'd be so happy to say I haven't seen my son in a few.
But he's been in and out of the house.
Yeah, he has, and some friends of his have too. And anyway, and he went to the rapid site in Warrenton, and one of his friends who was applying for a job locally, they knew that he had been in our house, and it's like, we need you to get tested, which was it was Front Row Brewery,
Right.
And they were awesome about it, and so we paid for his test, said go get tested. There's a guy who had been painting in our house. And we were like, hey, look, we're gonna pay for you to go just for their own safety, and because we just thought that was the right thing to do.
Sure.
And,
So you didn't take any medications or?
No, I mean, we take. They recommended a bunch of different vitamins like zinc and some other stuff. They didn't recommend that we inject ourselves with cleaning fluid or anything that. But they we took like vitamins. We take like vitamin C, zinc, vitamin D3, and
So you didn't. So it didn't attack your lungs or anything this
No,
time.
I will tell you.
But you knew you were sick.
Yeah, I mean, we had the fever for a couple of days, and then Sherry had the fever a little longer than I did, but once I got over the fever in a couple of days, then I started having those body chills and body aches and sweats and all that, and I had a couple of headaches, and I completely lost my sense of smell, and I had no appetite for about 8 days, and that's when I lost all the weight.
That's how you lose weight. Don't eat.
Yeah. No, I did what my wife said, which was load up on the liquids, and
Right,
I love
right.
orange juice and bananas, so I loaded up
Sure.
on that and the potassium, and I did what I was supposed to do to keep myself as well as I possibly could. But after about I guess it was day 6 was when I really started to feel a lot better. The cough was still really bad. But Sherry never really had a cough. She lost her sense of smell, but not her sense of taste. I lost my sense of smell, but not my taste. She lost
And
her
when
taste.
you listen to people that have had the virus, they all have all the symptoms are all over the place.
Yeah.
So it's you can't go the top 3 that people talk about. Say taste or fever. You may not have that.
Well, you may not, and I tell you, the part that was really scary for me, and in hindsight, is that I've had summer allergies my entire life. I grew up in southern Fauquier County,
Right.
throwing hay and taking an old hand rag or a bandana and soaking it with water and wrapping it around my head because of all the hay dust and
Right.
straw dust and alfalfa and everything else. And so I'm sneezing and I'm not thinking twice about it. I'm thinking, oh, that's just my summer allergies.
Right.
Well, I'm concerned now that there's a lot of people out there that probably have summer allergies that might not realize that they may very well be asymptomatic. And again, I don't know. They might not be. But
Right.
the other end of that is just because I'm in a restaurant and I'm coughing doesn't mean I have leprosy or COVID.
Exactly.
Cut me some slack, man. Because I'm who I am and people know me, whatever. People see me, and I've literally had people cross the street when they saw me walking. I'm like, what the heck? Now some of them are just being smart Alex, but
Sure,
because
sure.
I'm a smart Alec. But,
Right.
But some of them, I think they're genuine, and I don't blame them. But I'm like, I even though I don't have to do this, I went ahead and got retested a few days ago, just because I do some subcontracting for Randolph-Macon Academy.
Right.
They're starting to bring kids on campus, and they're obviously concerned. And they've got an awesome protocol for keeping their kids CQ'd until they know they're all okay. And God bless what they're doing up there and their vigilance. But they wanted to make sure, even though the CDC and the health department said, hey, after 10 days, just as long as you don't have any symptoms and you haven't had any fever for 72 hours, going about and just assume you're okay, because some of the tests will continue to pop positive up to 6 weeks after.
Right.
And of course, I'm thinking, man, I can't afford to take. I mean, it'd be nice to take 6 weeks off, but I can't afford that. And my wife certainly can't. Well, my wife, of course, works for Valley Health, and she went through the protocols that they have, the very strict ones they have. But I went ahead and got retested just because I thought it was the right thing to do for not just RMA, but quite frankly, my business. And I got my negative test, and I took like 8 screenshots of my negative test and started sending it to friends and whatever.
I'm going to post that in the limousine.
Yeah, look, I'm safe. It's going to be okay. But I don't blame people for wondering. They don't know.
They don't know.
They don't know if you've had it, and just because you've recovered, they wonder, are they still going to get it from you? Yeah, and right now, I like to think I'm probably the safest guy in front row to be around.
That's right. Yeah.
But at the same time, I wear my mask when I'm out in public because, again, I'm not an immunologist. I'm a kid guy, but and a driver. But I would never forgive myself if I knowingly hurt somebody else. So if wearing that does protect other people and whatever, and you physically can do it, I really encourage people to do it.
Right. And like you say, a lot of it's common sense. Be safe. If you're prone to, I've seen people exercising, driving in their car, wearing their mask by themselves. So we have and people, it's not safe. So there's all sorts of extremes. School is going back. We're going to be talking later today to Dr. Ballinger about the school opening, and there's a lot of concern. People from A to Z, from left to right, they're concerned about things.
And I don't blame them. I think one of the biggest misperceptions is they think because they have this somewhere that they're okay.
Yeah.
Well, that might protect my beard from something, but then I see people with it right here, and that's not helping either. It needs to be completely over your nose and over your mouth if you're going to wear it. If you're going to wear it at all, then wear it right.
Right.
And some people, people that have got asthma or people that have got COPD or whatever, I get that. I get that, man. I don't want somebody getting hurt because of wearing a mask. Right. But if you know dang well you can wear a mask, then look, just deal with it, man. Like, I didn't like putting my seatbelt on. My dad said, put your dang seatbelt on,
Exactly. But yeah, seatbelts we know work.
You're right.
And eventually we'll know that masks work.
Yeah.
So and again, if they don't work, they don't hurt.
No, bingo. That's the biggest thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we got to try to do what's if it helps somebody. Like you say, there's all sorts of protocol. I mean, there's opinions on masks, pros and cons. But if it keeps a brother from stumbling, we'll do it.
Hey, my favorite parallel with my son, who hates wearing a mask, and I hate wearing a mask, is look. It makes no sense for me to pull up to a red light at 3:00 in the morning, coming back from Dulles or Reagan Airport, seeing that nobody's coming, and for me to sit there, at that red light. So I go. And as soon as I go, there's
another red light.
There's another red light, a blue light coming behind me, and they really don't care that I disagreed with the law. So I pay my fine, and I say I probably shouldn't do that.
You're the kind of guy though that turns right, makes a U-turn, and turns right and keeps.
Well, that's
going.
it, man. Yeah, how can I get through this? And I'm like, what? I'm not being a role model for my kid.
Right.
And so, it's just things
we need to think about things
it,
like
it,
that.
It really, you really do.
Well, let's change the subject for a minute and let's talk about the things that you've done. You were at RMA for quite a few years.
20 years.
20 years, and now you are MDub Limousine Service.
MDub Chauffeur Services. I do.
You got to hold your little pinky up, right?
Well, here's where it gets. And I feel, whenever I donate things to people like the United Way or whatever, and they say, hey, look, we'd like some kind of donation or whatever, they're doing a silent auction or a door prize.
Right.
I would donate a free trip to Dulles, Reagan, BWI, Port of Baltimore, whatever, for up to 6 people.
Right.
Well, because people saw Chauffeur Services, they automatically thought that I'm going to show up in a big stretch limousine with a Hummer,
right?
And a bunch of crazy lights and everything else, and then I show up in my Toyota, my 2018 Toyota Highlander, and they're like, hey, where's the liquor cabinet?
Right.
And I'm like, oh, hopefully in your house, But and there was one case with a really dear friend, locally, that really got upset because I think he had been, I think it was misunderstandingly misled to believe that he had got something he had not. And I think people misunderstand limousine service for the stretch limo. Whereas, and when I used to drive at the Homestead years ago, when I got out of grad school and just needed to kind of get my life together, the people were upset because you showed up in a sedan and not a stretch limo, and you
Right.
had to explain, hey, limousine service means getting you from point A to point B.
Exactly.
You know, it could be a golf cart.
Right.
But stretch limousine service is a different issue. So that's why I called it chauffeur services, because I didn't want people misunderstanding that I was something I wasn't.
Right.
I had several people trying to talk me into buying a minibus and a stretch, and the insurance was just outrageous, and I would have had to have it on the road 70, 80 hours a week and charging what everybody else charges in
Sure,
the region to make that work. And like, man, I'm 54 years old. I'm somewhat semi-retired. That's good. Yeah, somewhat semi-retired.
Somewhat.
And I'm not. I'm on the other end of that mountain.
Sure.
And so I want to do what I enjoy, but I also want to make sure that I'm being responsible with my resources and not putting myself into an even earlier grave.
So you talked about taking people to the airport.
Correct.
That's pretty standard. I mean, it's a long way. It's expensive to park your car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I price it. We've talked about it. It's really reasonable to do that when you really, especially up to 6 people travel with you. You can't drive your own car and park it for a week. I don't think, or 6 cars definitely.
No, it's a depending on how long you're going to be gone, it's worth
Right.
pulling out a calculator and saying,
Sure,
hey, what's
sure.
what's more or less expensive, and of course there's the convenience as
Oh,
well.
it's a convenience factor.
Yeah.
So we know you do that. So what else do? You talked about these tours. So obviously you're just not running. Well, right now you're not running back and forth to the airport.
Yeah, well, I've got a few, but not much. Dulles and Reagan look like a scene out of The Walking Dead right now.
Right.
But there is some movement. It's a little bit's coming back, but now with the resurgence of COVID in different areas, who knows what's going to happen. So what I tried to focus on was now that the wineries and the craft beer facilities are reopening, trying to market that.
Sure.
And weddings are starting to come back a little bit, and people always need to get to Northern Virginia for a medical appointment. And so, if I can help in that way, I'm more than happy to do that as well. It's a very comfortable vehicle. It's leather throughout. You can check out my website at ridewithmw.com and look at my car, look at all the amenities I have, and give me a call or shoot me an email if you have a question about it. My rates, I'm rather confident, are very competitive
Very
and
fair.
much more reasonable than some other places, and that's not I know why they charge what they charge.
Well, sure.
They have to hire other people, they have to do this and do that, and I'm my own person.
Yeah.
It's just
you
me.
can turn it off when you want to.
Yeah, and if I have too much going on, which has not been the issue since March, then I can call one of my friends who has an LLC that I know of and know that they have insurance, and I can refer them accordingly.
Well, I see you around. I know you're very active in the community. What's got your fancy here lately, other than the Rotary? Because I know you're big in Rotary and all the service that they do. Service to community.
It
So,
is.
but I know
Service
you've
above
taken
self.
on a few other.
Yeah, the biggest one, and as much as I hope I can continue to help them, I hope that they don't need my help, is reaching out now with Ann Cobb and Samantha Barber. They have done. They've done God's work in this community with what they've done with this past, once the school shut down, and trying to get the kids fed. And I'll be honest with you, once I lost 90+% of my business from March until at least mid-September, my concern was, hey, how are we making sure that our local children are being fed? I live in a nice part of an area that a few blocks from my home, people struggle very, very much. And so they said they wanted to make sure these kids got fed and deliver meals. And then Cisco and a bunch of others were donating food left and right. My church, New Hope Bible, was collecting the food and making sure that it got out to the CCAP, Salvation Army, Reaching Out Now, etc. And so I got a hold of Samantha and Ann and said, what do you need from me? And they said, we need somebody to deliver the food. And what they did, they divvied it up among like 4 to 5 families every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I just did what several others did, which was help deliver it. And there were a few days that I couldn't because I got lucky and somebody needed to ride somewhere to the airport. And but for the most part, that was it. But just that they took the bull by the horns and said, we're going to make sure our kids get fed.
They see a need and they.
Yeah. Now, through that, the Warren County Public Schools was also making sure that they had sites where parents could go and get food for their
Right.
families and still be fed.
Right.
But with not knowing what was happening until a couple of days ago here in town with our kids. My concern was, look, I want kids in school educated like everybody else, but I want our teachers safe too. And so one of the concerns I have right now is trying to not just make sure kids are fed, but also are our teachers okay? Do they need masks? Do they need the face shields? What do we need to do to make sure we protect them as well? And instead of just sending them out there, especially those that are older, and I'm 55, 54, but as I get older, I start thinking, hey, should I got a bunch of these little guys around me.
Exactly.
And, I want to do right by them, but, I got to go home and be with my loved one, or maybe I'm taking care of my mom or something, and I don't want to risk her well-being or his well-being. So I get concerned that we're making sure we're taking care of everybody. And one thing I've always loved about this community and why I joined Rotary was because I think anytime our community sees a need, that whether it's Rotary, Kiwanis, Lions, Ruritans, or whatever, people say, look, are reaching out now, CCAP, Salvation Army, how do we figure out this so we can help one another? And we get some really unfortunate press sometimes in our town because people take photos and put them on social media, and we know of a recent one, and it's so frustrating because there's so much good in this community, and being a part of that has been probably the greatest joy of my life.
Well, it's what we call our hometown, and it's what we make it. And I think that it's a great place. I try to champion, Front Royal. I get a passion for it. Just like you chose to make it your hometown. If you weren't born here and grazed here, people look at it, you can see the good, and you can see people moving into our community every day. It's amazing amount of people that move in and out, move in, move out, move around in Front Royal. So I think it's going to be better. I think we want to make it great again. We coined that phrase. No one has ever used that before.
And I'll I don't know if we're ending with this, but when Samuel Porter and Stevie Hubbard put together the Front Royal Unites group, what impressed me the most about that whole thing was that they called it, without getting into other avenues, they called it Front Royal Unites. And it was, what can we do with our community to unite us? And people can have their opinions about angles and narratives and whatever, and that's fine. But for me and my wife, we saw an opportunity to be part of something uniting for our community. Right. And I never, we didn't talk politics. People obviously had them, when they were there, and then people were espousing those while they were there. And that was a little frustrating, but even within that, I saw people that I know in my town from all narratives and walks of life that literally came together to unite because they love this town. And for me, that was a very healing thing. And it was so cool for people that are actually from here. And I think there are probably a few that weren't from here that came down to see what was going to happen. But it blew their narrative.
Right.
And they saw that we actually love each other. And that we care about each other. And even as we walked by some places that had some very strong opinions, they were respectful.
Exactly.
They kept their opinions, but they were very respectful because they saw how respectful the Unite was respectful. Right. And so that's the kind of thing I like to be part of.
Well, it's great to be part of a nice place, isn't it?
It is. And the Front Royal is a nice place.
Well, Michael, we need more people like you in our community. And
no, one of me's enough, but caring.
Well, with an attitude of yours
Thank you.
in our community, and we hope that it's contagious. No. At least that is contagious, not our virus. But
kindness can be a great disease.
Well, laughter and kindness is a great medicine. And
Grady Nutt. I remember Grady Nutt from a hee-haw.
Yeah.
Grady Nutt said, "Laughter is the finger of God on a crying world."
True. So true. Well, we'll leave it with that. How's that? Amen. Again, Michael, thanks so much for coming in, talking to us about your weight loss program.
Yeah.
A little bit about your chauffeur business.
Thank you.
And if you need a ride to the airport or thinking about it, give Michael
please.
a call. He's got a great service. He is reliable. Let me tell you, you are very reliable. So you're not going to be left stranded at the airport.
You will not.
You will not. That's not going to happen.
No, you will not.
Virus or not, you'll make sure somebody else is there.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
We appreciate it. Again, thanks so much and appreciate everything you do for our community.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you so much.
Bye.